Comprehension is one of the most challenging elements of reading instruction, and that's because it's the goal. It's the outcome that we want our students to be able to achieve when they're reading any form of a text. So how do we teach comprehension? Well, we really don't. We teach strategies, we teach skills that help them to develop comprehension overall. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you one really simple strategy that you can start incorporating across all of your content areas in order to help develop comprehension. So what exactly is this strategy that I'm talking about that you can utilize across all of the different content areas? It's called a semantic feature analysis. Now, semantic is a form of or a branch of the linguistics which really deals with the study of meaning when it comes to vocabulary, which is perfect. And one of the things that we understand when it comes to comprehension is that we have to have so many different elements. If we're looking at the reading rope, really you have two sections. You have word recognition and language comprehension. And so the area that I'm really going to focus on with you is going to be that language comprehension piece. So this is where we're developing an understanding and meanings behind vocabulary. We're looking at background knowledge. We're being able to conduct inferences with our students, and all of these are really necessary in order for students to develop comprehension. We have to have those key pieces in order for them to do it. So it's not necessarily focused on strategies, but it's more so focused in these branches of what we look at when we see the reading rope. So within a semantic feature analysis, basically what it is it's a grid. And within this grid, students are looking at connections and comparisons between vocabulary and various features or characteristics. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a little bit. But I want to talk you through what makes this such an amazing strategy that you can use inside of your classroom. But before I get into the positives of using this strategy, I want to share with you really quick that a lot of this information that I am pulling from is coming from the book, The Reading Comprehension Blueprint. It is a text that I've been reading over the past couple of months. It is truly fantastic in having a deeper understanding of what comprehension really is and how do we help to develop that within our students, especially those that are really struggling when it comes to comprehension. And so I'm excited to announce that we have a summer catalog out for the Bridging Literacy community. And within our summer catalog, one of the key features is going to be a book club featuring the Reading Comprehension Blueprint. And so we're going to be unpacking this, really discussing what this looks like inside of our classrooms, coming up with some various templates that teachers are going to be able to utilize. And so if you want to check out that summer catalog, I'm going to leave a link so that you can see it for yourself and look at what we're going to be unpacking over this summer. Lots of really great learning opportunities are going to happen in hopes that it helps to build you up and set you up for success for that upcoming school year. It's kind of crazy that we're already talking about that, but I mean, we have to continuously learn and grow because when we know better, we do better. Okay, so let's talk about some of the pros when it comes to the semantic feature analysis. Like, what does it actually do for our students? Well, number one, and I believe that this is the most important out of all of them, is that it allows students to develop connections. Now, we know that our brains, in order for us to retain information, to be able to transfer new knowledge into background knowledge that we're kind of learning and acquiring, right? We have to develop connections. And that means that we are connecting it to other topics. We're connecting it between our life and what this looks like. We're connecting it between the features in so many different areas of content. And so the more opportunities our students have to process and be able to develop some of those connections, the easier it's going to be for them to be able to retain that information. So we have to build those opportunities for our students, which is why bridging literacy is so important, because it is built on connections. It is built around this idea of creating connections and allowing students to see what it looks like from all different aspects of literacy and just learning in general. The next area that is beneficial here with the semantic feature analysis is that you're building vocabulary and background knowledge. Like, that is truly what a semantic feature analysis is. Going back to semantics, it's the study of meaning when it comes to linguistics in general. And so when we are working with a grid that has terms, it's not necessarily just one word, but it can be a group of words that it's like a term, an idea that we need to be able to process a little bit more to gain a deeper understanding of what it truly means. We're then also building some more of that background knowledge and creating those connections for our students. And then the final benefit that I have for you is that semantic feature analysis allows students to be able to differentiate between terms that have very similar meanings. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say you are reading a text, and this is going to be one of my examples a little bit later on, but you're reading a text that has to do with World War II and Hitler and Jews, and you're learning all of these key terms around all of these different classifications of people when it came to World War II and what was happening with all of these different individuals. And so when you don't have a clear understanding of who they are and what they did and why they were so significant within World War II, it's going to make it really challenging for students to be able to comprehend World War II in general. So we start to really differentiate between these similar meanings between these terms. So again, that students can create this depth and breadth of vocabulary that we need for them to be able to build in order to be able to comprehend a little bit later on. See, comprehension is the goal, and we're utilizing all of these areas, these components of reading instruction to be able to achieve that goal of comprehending that text. So what I want to do now is I'm going to take you to a different spot in the office, and we're going to go over a semantic feature analysis and look at what does this look like. It's an example that I utilized when I went and did a presentation just recently with a school on comprehension, and I shared this strategy with them. And so I'm going to share this strategy with you and then also give you some more examples. So let's go ahead and go and do that now. So this is an example of a semantic feature analysis that I utilized during a session with the school when I was going over comprehension. And so this is a Kling poster that you can add to any wall and it'll automatically stick. So I don't have anything holding it up. It'll come right off. I can fold it and then place it up on any wall, practically any wall. But this is what it is. It is a write-on Klingon sheet. I will leave a link so that if you want to check these out, you can definitely go and find these on Amazon. They are dry erasable, which is really nice. I utilized a Sharpie here, and I did have some areas where I had errors, but you can always do the little trick where you can go over it with an Expo marker and it'll automatically erase that Sharpie from the sheet. So let's look at the semantic feature analysis and talk about how we implement this or how we hold discussions. So along the side, you're going to have your key terms, your vocabulary that you're wanting to have students develop a deeper understanding of. So when we only hit vocabulary at a surface level, students are really not going to have a deep connection and understanding of what that is meant to look like, sound like, all of the different things. So we have all of our key terms along the side, and then up at the very top, you're going to notice that we have our categories. These can be features, these can be characteristics. So for this example, I utilized fairy tales because as educators, we're really familiar with fairy tales instruction. So I have some of the different fairy tales that you might be aware of. Little Red Riding Hood, Three Little Pigs, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel. So all of these fall underneath that genre of fairy tales. And so I wanted to explore a little bit about genres itself. So this would be a really great method and strategy to be able to do that with your students. And so I pulled out some of the elements for fairy tales and I placed them up at the very top. good versus evil, contains magical elements, has royalty or castles, comes in objects of 3s or 7s, and then has talking animals and lives happily ever after. Now for this example, because I'm doing it on cling wrap here, I didn't want to write on it. So what I did is I just placed sticky notes all around the side of my grid. And I have pluses and I have minuses. So some pluses, some minuses. And so as you would go through, when you read each of the different fairy tales with your students, so I would read Little Red Riding Hood first, I would then go through and we would have a discussion as a class of whether or not it included any of these elements under fairy tales. So for Little Red Riding Hood, I would say, does it have good versus evil? Does Little Red Riding Hood have a character who is good? And does it have a character who is pure evil and always stays good and always stays evil? Absolutely, it does have that. So we would put a plus right in that box. And then I would continue to go alongside, along the entire row and determine whether or not it contained some of those features. So I'm gonna do that really quick and then we're gonna come back and see how it starts to compare with the 3 little pigs. Contains magic. Okay, so now we have a finalized row for the Little Red Riding Hood and looking at all the different characteristics. So Little Red Riding Hood does not contain magic, it does not have royalty or castles, but it does have talking animals and it does have objects in 3s. So it's grandmother, oh what big eyes you have, oh what big ears you have, oh what big sharp teeth you have. Like those are the 3s that we see repetitive within Little Red Riding Hood. Then I would read the 3 little pigs. So this is an example of a feature analysis where it's comparing lots of different texts. You can also have some that only focus on one text, and I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like in just a minute. So if I have the 3 little pigs here, good versus evil, absolutely. We've got the wolf, which is evil, and the pigs, which are good. And contains magic? No, doesn't have that magical element. Does it have royalty or castles? No, it does not. Does it come in objects of 3? Yeah, there's 3 little pigs, right? Little pig, let me in. And he does that 3 different times. Does it have talking animals? Absolutely. Do they live happily ever after? Yes. So as we start to get into like Sleeping Beauty and Rapunzel, we're gonna notice that it does contain magic and it does have royalty and castles. And so the kids are going to start to build connections and look at the comparisons between these characteristics amongst all of the different text that they're seeing here. So now I want to show you what this looks like for one text and allowing students to be able to process the information there. Okay, so I said that I was going to show you what this looks like when it comes to a text itself. So I'm going to give you 2 different examples. This one is The Book Thief, which is a fantastic book if you have not read it. And so again, you have the terms or the phrases, the vocabulary terms that we want to consider here. And then up at the top, we're going to place all of the characteristics and features. And so you could give this to students, and then as they read, they're going to place pluses and minuses for whether or not these terms have this feature, so or fall under this characteristic or feature. So they would place a plus or a minus here, plus or minus here. So you can see that they have, sent to an intermittent camp, made to live in the ghettos, made to wear a Star of David. And so students are really processing all of this information when it comes to all of these different terms that they're reading as they go through the text. So they're developing a much deeper understanding of these individuals and the roles that they played within World War II. Here's another example. This is a book called Restart. You're going to see that I don't have this one completely done. It's been a while since I've read this book, but it is a favorite of mine. So I was trying to give you two different examples that looked a little bit different. So in this book, Restart, you have Chase, who is a jock. He falls off the roof and he loses his memory. And so there are a lot of different characters within that story. So we have the characters here along the side. And then at the top, you can have different features or characteristics that you want them to consider. So you could do conflict, so character versus self, character versus character. You might have down that either they were a jock or they did videography, photography, and look at comparing these characters and the roles that they played within that story. So how do you go about making one of these? Because there's a lot of work that goes into it. Well, the beauty is that once you do these and you start to familiarize yourself with this process, it does get a little bit easier. But I will tell you that when you're first getting started with a semantic feature analysis, start small. Don't try to do a really big, heavy text because that's going to take you some time in order to process and get through. So I would say to start with any form of anthology, some form of a short story, or even at the very beginning of the year, if you're starting to explore genres and teaching genres and you're introducing some of these texts, you can do one as the example that I did out there with fairy tales and looking at those characteristics and how it falls within that category. And students will really appreciate having a deeper understanding of what these genres mean and what does this truly look like, especially as they start to explore them as writers within their writing block time. So the first thing that I would tell you to do is start small, go with a much smaller text, and then you're going to have to figure out and pick a category, a topic. Now you could do this within conflict. You might do, I'm going to actually, never mind. And so from there, you're going to have to pick some form of a category. And these categories can really range, and you're going to be able to explore these, especially as you start to consider putting these into other content areas, because you can use a semantic feature analysis within math, within science, within social studies. Truly, the possibilities are endless, and it's because the goal is comprehension here. It really does help to support comprehension with your students. So here are some ideas for how you can utilize this. You can do emotions and attitudes, so looking at different characters and the emotions or the attitudes that they have within that text. And what's nice is as we start to look at our upper elementary teachers, you're going to ask them to locate evidence, right? So you're going to say, well, where's the evidence that you have to support that? And so that's going to have them go back to the text to be able to find that and back up their reasonings as they start to go through and place their pluses and minuses into their grid. The other area that you can look at are character traits and relationships. So looking at the relationships, the character traits of those characters within that story, action or motions that are happening within the text, features or physical attributes that they might have within a story. And this doesn't just necessarily lend itself to characters. Maybe you're doing an entire reading on the Native Americans and you're really wanting to look at where they lived and you're building in geography. Like all of these are characteristics and features and attributes that you want students to be able to consider, especially when they're reading informational text and they're trying to process all of that information that they're getting from it. You could do places and events, natural environment, which is another great one for some informational text. So if you're reading anything with animals and you're looking at the natural environment of those specific animals or looking at biomes themselves, you can build a feature analysis of that. And then also looking at social systems. And this would be a really great way to build in a lot of government and your social studies piece. So I was working with one school and they have CKLA and it was 4th grade. And so 4th grade has, I think it's called Noblemen and the Nobles and the Serfs. And so it's an entire reading that they do in, I think, their unit 1. where they're reading about nobles and serfs. And it's like, well, if they don't really have a ton of background knowledge about nobles and serfs, they're not going to really understand what it is that they're reading. And so creating a semantic feature analysis is a great way for them to have a very clear image of these characteristics and features of the differences between these two, and allowing them to process and create some of those connections. So hopefully that helps you. So you find your category that you really want to work and build when it comes to helping your students comprehend that text. And then you're going to add those to the grid. And of course, you're going to place your vocabulary, your key terms, whatever it is that you have, characters that you're wanting students to be able to compare on the left side of your grid. And then what you're going to do is present it to the class. Now, here are some different options here. You could have them read it, and then go back and reread it, and then look for those characteristics. Or if this is a topic that you feel as though your students have some form of background knowledge with, you might want to present them with the grid first and say, hey, I want you to look at how you would categorize these. Put a plus or a minus as like, here's kind of just building your background knowledge in the very beginning and seeing what you know, and then having them read it and then go back and revisit their semantic feature analysis. And then that way you're going to say, what were some of the changes that you made? Why did you make some of those changes? What were the misconceptions that you had before reading that are now clarified after this reading assignment? So you can build in a lot of great discussion, and it is one of my favorite things to do in reading is to build discussion opportunities, because our students need more and more and more of those. They don't get enough of it when it comes to discussing academic topics. You know, they're used to talking a lot and they're used to talking with their friends a lot, but it's typically on concepts and ideas that they're really familiar with. So now we're going to build in some of that academic language in those academic conversations, and we're building that as teachers and helping to support them along the way with it. So that is a semantic feature analysis. Now, here's the thing. I have a freebie to give for you. Now, I want you to go ahead and sign up for my mailing list. You're not going to get it just yet, but on Tuesday, I'm going to send out a reminder of this video, and then I'm also going to send out the semantic feature analysis grid. So if you watch this when this video releases, sign up for my mailing list. I'll leave a link for you, and then that way you can get the template to be able to incorporate these into your classroom. So you have everything that you might need in order to build it with your students. So I hope that you really, really like this strategy. I love this strategy. I think it is a fantastic one, one that you can utilize multiple points within a school year to get students familiarized with it, but also to really help to support them along the way. Now, if you're sitting here thinking, wait a second, Bridget, my students can't do this. Well, it's okay, because I have some differentiation pieces that are going to help to support you here. Okay, so let's talk about differentiation. If your students are really struggling with this in the very beginning, the first thing that you could do is add visuals to build representation for this. So create some visuals and do these together as a class rather than sending students off immediately and just having them do it on their own. Do it together a few times so that they feel comfortable with the process overall and they feel confident to be able to go and do those independently. And you can add those visuals to help kind of trigger reminders for them. I would also recommend that you use concrete words and concepts. So don't try to go with anything super abstract just yet. Make sure that it's something that they can find within the text that they're reading, so that way they have something to be able to go back to and relate with. And the next one that I have for you is to really begin with items that are very dissimilar. So when we start with topics that are incredibly dissimilar and there are not as many commonalities between them, students are going to be able to see those very distinctly. Once we start getting into topics and terms that have a lot of similarities with them, that starts to become more challenging. So you can always kind of backtrack a little bit and start with those dissimilar pieces and then build from there. And hopefully that helps to kind of build some confidence and build this understanding of how to utilize the semantic analysis in order to support them in their learning journey. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to know what you think of this. Are you already using this inside of your classroom? Do you plan on using this a lot more within your classroom? If you have any questions about it, please feel free to leave them into the comment section. I will be answering them as they come in. And so thank you so much for watching this. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye.